Beep, 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 beep. Hello, hello. It's a Jester special. I'm very excited by this Jester special. And I shall tell you why as I flip through my screen, frantically trying to start from the top. It looks like the government consultation for toilet provision for men and women, call for evidence, analysis of responses received is now available. So I put the links in the doobers as usual. You'll find it there. Okay? This will cause a kerfuffle. This report provides a summary of the analysis of responses received to the toilet provision for men and women. Call for evidence. The call for evidence ran from the 31st of October to 26th of February. The call for evidence set out issues, but did not ask any questions, right? Did not ask any questions. Got it? Free-flowing narratives. That's what they asked for and that's what they got, right? So, it did not ask any questions. It requested that technical comments were submitted by email to a specified email address. All the responses have been analysed using standardised fields to enable the responses to be summarised in this report. The common themes that were raised in the responses have been collated under the following headings: reading of support for type of toilet provision, safety concerns for particular groups, other issues, and protected characteristics impacted. In addition, responses that cited design issues considerations were analysed further to understand these in more detail. Okay, so the call for evidence did not ask any questions, which meant respondents were able to comment on any of the issues presented. While this approach provided a great deal of detail on a range of views, it means that a quantitative analysis of the responsives can result in potentially misleading interpretations of what respondents intended to say. In other words, you can't believe any of it. In other words, it's been an absolute exercise in futility. An exercise in futility because we know the answer. 3 types of toilet: male, female, disabled. That's it. Okay? Now then, this overall analysis presents number and percentage of respondents who were judged to support certain toilet types. However, respondents were not asked to support one toilet type over another or indicate whether or not they supported specific toilet types. I don't think I've ever said the word toilet or type so much as I'm about to. Okay? For example, the analysis could be read as suggesting, can be read as suggesting that only 2% of respondents were supportive of disabled persons' toilets. Only 2%. That's how it could be read. Now, you and I know that if we stopped the average man in the street and said to him, do you believe that there should be a toilet provision specifically for disabled people? The answer, 99.9% of the time, is going to be yes. In which case, you can read this as 2% of the public support it, or you can read it as 99% of the public support it, because we know that would be true. In which case, this doesn't really tell us a damn thing, does it? Not a damn thing, right? What a waste of time, right? We do not, however, believe that if we'd asked specifically if people supported disabled persons' toilets being provided, only 2% of respondents would have said yes. We consider it more likely to be that the case people simply did not choose to comment on disabled persons' toilets in their responses, on the presumption that disabled persons' toilets would continue to be provided, as is currently the case, right? So you've had lots of the TRAs going, and lots of people saying, well, they can use a disabled toilet. No, they can't. No, right? Okay, male and female, that's it. The same logic applies to all the headline percentages throughout the analysis. It should be noted that respondents choosing to comment on certain issues or toilet types, there it is again, mentioned in the call for evidence does not necessarily indicate a lack of support for those issues or toilet types they did not comment on. So what they're saying is, look, we got together a load of stories and we didn't realise that when we got together the stories, it was going to be really hard to find out which one of them actually had any validity and which didn't. And besides which, I mean, we don't even know what people's assumptions were when they were doing this. In fact, we could have just as easily done this by saying, send us a story, Jack and Ori, and we'll give 50 quid to the first person that we pick out the hat when 1,000 respond. In other words, it tells us nothing. Nothing. Because you can't rely on the figures. Because the figures are extrapolated from what people said. Right? So don't panic, okay? But they did have 17,589 responses in response to a call for evidence. And those were almost all individuals. There are only 105 responses from organisations. Isn't that interesting? They've then got various tables, which you can have a look at when you look at the whole thing. Table 1, profile of responses to call for evidence. And then they've done us a nice pie chart to show us how tiny the amount of organisations that responded were. You've got to bear in mind, I see people say on Twitter all the time, well, you've got gender neutral toilet in your home. What? Yeah, great. Because I've got, strangers traipsing through all day, pushing a big one. What? Just going to use your toilet. I know I don't know you, but the little bugger's poking his head out. So I'm going to go now. Do you mind? Yes, I mind. Get out of my house. 12,606 responses, that's 72% of all responses received, included reference to reports and research material. That's interesting. So 72% included reference to reports and research material. That's people who know what they're talking about, isn't it? Or who are in the battle, yeah. Just over 2/3 of all responses to the call for evidence cited reports or research, but did not attach or provide links to those resources. To those sources. Fewer than 3% of responses to the call for evidence included attachment or links to further information. So only 3% of the total responses cited and included attachments and links. Where attachments or links were provided, there was an even split between the number of responses citing technical research information. Example, legislation and regulations, academic journal articles, and those citing non-technical information, for example, press, articles and blogs. That's interesting, isn't it? One half of the people that did respond cited, legislation, regulations and academic journals. The other half responded blogs and articles. Wonder how that split worked out. Hey, what do you reckon? What? Who's it from? Jack Durbin. Table 2, number and types of references included in responses. This is the table that's just outlining what I've just said to you. Stonewall UK, LGBT in UK's LGBT in Britain trans report was cited, here we go, in 11,866 responses. Stonewall. Who's listening to them, right? The next most cited report or piece of research, with 115 citations, was a 2013 report by UCLA's School of Law Williams Institute titled Gendered Restrooms and Minority Stress. 23 responses cited a 2019 report by UCLA School of Law, by the Royal Society of Public Health titled Taking the Piss, which highlighted the health impacts of limiting public toilet provision. So let's get our head around that, right? 11,866 of the respondents cited Stonewall. And their ridiculous nonsense. They then move on to talk about what are called headline findings. Now, you may or may not know what this is, headline findings, which is like, here's the main stuff. Right. 95% of responses were read to be, which is they interpreted it, supportive of at least one type of toilet provision listed in Table 3. I'll come to Table 3 in a minute, right? 83% were read to be supportive of non-gendered toilets, 12% of separate sex toilets, and 6% of non-gendered toilet provision in addition to separate sex toilets, and 2% of disabled persons' toilets and changing places. As stated in the introduction, when interpreting these numbers, it should be noticed that respondents to the call for evidence were not answering specific questions. They were making their own choices about what issues to comment on. It should also be noted that the call for evidence did not say whether each toilet type might be considered as the only type to be provided or as an additional provision alongside other toilet types. It's just a mess. It's an absolute unmitigated mess. The same logic should be applied to all these numbers, which should be taken in the context of a call for evidence. For each line below, this is the number and percentage of people who, when given free choice of what to comment on, chose to indicate their support for these types of toilets, right? Bear in mind how many of these were not organisations. They were just people, right? Just people. So, read to be supportive of non-gendered toilets. Number of responses, 14,549. 83% of people are supportive of non-gendered toilets. Trouble is, they interpreted what that meant themselves. Nobody said what it meant. If you go to a small business with 20 people, you might have one or two toilets. They won't necessarily be gendered, because they'll just be a bog with a basin, right? So what do they mean by non-gendered toilets? Separate sex toilets, only 12% were read to be supported for separate sex toilets. That tells you a number of things. Not least of all that the vast majority of people that respond to this are trans, TRAs. Gotta be, haven't they? Gotta be. Non-gendered toilets, especially considering they all quoted Stonewall. Hello? The vast majority quoted Stonewall, and these are the results. I wonder why. Non-gendered toilets, in addition to separate sex toilets, 6%. Disabled person toilets changing places, 2%. No preference identified, 5%. Just madness. You think, I mean, all those responses, you think about the amount of public money's been spent on this crap, right? You get 2 toilets, male and female. That's it. Plus the disabled, which is not just a toilet, it's a place to deal with all sorts of things, right? So don't, male and female, that's it. That's all there is. We do not organise our society based around gender identity. End of story. Sake. We just want to pee. I'm sure you do, but the fact that you just want to pee and the weirdos you've got in your movement mean that ain't gonna happen. You just pee where you're supposed to pee. Right, so safety concern for particular groups. This is an interesting one. 86% of responses cited safety concerns for particular groups. 76 responses mentioned safety concerns for trans and non-binary people. We're asking about toilets for males or females. It says that in the first paragraph, and these people are talking about gender identity. It says in the first paragraph, toilets for males or females. And they're talking about gender identity and that, all that guff that comes with it. I wonder who responded to this, I wonder. 75% mentioned safety concerns for women. That's interesting. Isn't it? Fewer than 5% responses mentioned safe concerns for girls, children, men, disabled people and boys. It's because they're thinking in terms of male and female, I think. But 73% mentioned safety concerns for women. Isn't it weird? That's just a weird figure. 86% of responses cited safety concerns for particular groups of people using toilets. 79% of responses mentioned safety concerns for trans non-binary people. And 75% mentioned safety concerns for women. Is it me or does that make no sense at all? Of the 13,184 responses which mentioned safety concerns for women, 11,646 respondents, 88% of all responses, mentioned safety concerns for women. They also mentioned safety concerns for women from particular groups. Go on. What is going on here? What do they mean? We don't know. They've extrapolated it from a long list of stories. A long list of stories. Go and have a look at the whole thing. The problem is that the whole thing doesn't mean anything. It can't, because it has been extrapolated from what is just a call for evidence. Well, they've now got some evidence. They've got evidence that's gone in by people that attached and cited stuff that is now available for them to look at. But it makes no difference. It's a waste of time. There are only 2 sexes, male and female. It isn't your gender identity that pushes a big un, right? Or has a whittle. It's not your gender identity, is it? Is it? I must go to the toilet. My gender identity is forcing me. It's your sex. It's your sex. And it's quite simple. We organise our society based on sex, male and female. That's it. Male and female wards, which is what it should be. Male and female wards, right? We know why. Men. Male and female wards, right? Male and female. Male gatherings of men who are same-sex attracted, gay men. Should be just gay men, not women. We're not organising our society on gender identity. And that's what the government needs to say. It's over. This tells us precisely nothing. It is confused, right? It is just simply a collation of narratives. The assumption is made that people know what trans means and know what non-binary means, which they don't. They have no idea of what underlies those ridiculous ideas. None. None. Right, we know that because we speak to them every day. So do the warrior teachers, right? This doesn't tell us anything. What it does tell us is that the government is going to be just as confused as this report is, or they could just do what they should have done in the first place, which is put this to bed and end it by saying, as they've already done in some cases, all toilets will be same-sex. All toilets will be single sex moving forward, and that any organisation that has done away with the woman's toilet needs to put the woman's toilet back and make the men's toilet unisex. That'll upset them. But it won't be enough, because they want access to female toilets. They want access to male toilets. They want the rest of the world to validate their fake, constructed simulacrum identities. And in doing so, unanchor us from our basic categorization as men and women, boys and girls, male and female. And that can't happen. The government must act. It must act quickly. There must be no equivocation. There are only two sexes, male and female. Toilets should be based upon that, as should sport and chess. If women want to play chess against women, fine. Men want to play chess against men, fine. We do this because there are differences between men and women, which A, we don't fully understand, and B, we account for when we do. We're not going to pretend you're something you're not as a society. It ends, and it ends now. I don't care what you wear, and I don't care what you call yourself. I am never using your language again. Ever. Men and women. Game on. Let's keep going.